Before you decide this is just another headline, stop for a second and listen carefully, because what you are about to witness is not just a statement. It is the exact moment everything shifted between Joseph Zeng and Bai Lu, and if you stay with the story until the very end, you're going to uncover why those few words sent shockwaves through everyone who thought they understood their connection. So subscribe right now and stay with every moment, because this one unfolds in ways no one expected. It did not begin with an argument. It did not begin with a confrontation. It began with something quieter, a question that had been building over time, a tension that had never fully surfaced, and a silence that had lasted longer than it should have. The setting was simple, not dramatic, not staged, just a space where a conversation could no longer be avoided. Joseph Zeng sat across from a small group during what was supposed to be a routine discussion. Nothing unusual, nothing out of place, until the topic shifted, not suddenly, but gradually, towards something more personal, more direct, more difficult to ignore. At first, he remained calm, measured, choosing his words carefully, as if he understood that what he said next would not stay contained within that room. Because some statements do not remain private. They carry too much weight. They move too quickly. They become something larger than the moment they were spoken in. Someone asked a question, not aggressive, not confrontational, but pointed enough to require an honest answer. And that was when everything changed. Joseph did not deflect. He did not redirect. He did not avoid. He answered, not loudly, not emotionally, but clearly. He said that Bai Lu was not ready for marriage. The room went still. Not silent, but paused in a way that made everything feel heavier. Because statements like that do not exist without meaning. They do not appear without history. They do not stand alone. And that was what made it impossible to ignore. He continued, not to attack, not to accuse, but to explain. He said readiness is not about time. It is not about pressure. It is not about what others expect. It is about understanding. Understanding what it means to commit, to stay, to build something that does not collapse when things become difficult. And he made it clear. He did not believe she was there yet. The reaction was immediate, not in the room, but beyond it, because words like that do not stay contained. They spread. They reach places faster than anyone can control. Fans reacted. Shock, confusion, disbelief. Because what they heard did not match what they thought they knew. The narrative shifted instantly. From quiet speculation to intense discussion. From uncertainty to divided opinions. But what people did not see was what happened before that moment. The conversations that led up to it. The decisions that had already been made. The realization that had been forming long before it was spoken out loud. Bai Lu did not respond immediately. Not publicly. Not directly. And that silence became part of the story. Because silence invites interpretation. It creates space for assumptions, for conclusions that may not be accurate, but feel convincing enough to be believed. She was somewhere else entirely when the statement reached her. Not in a crowd, not surrounded by noise, just alone. Her phone lighting up repeatedly, messages stacking, notifications multiplying. Each one carrying the same question, the same concern, the same urgency. But she did not react the way people expected. She did not respond immediately. She did not deny. She did not confirm. She waited. Because some moments require time, not to avoid, but to understand. The truth behind what had been said was not simple. It was not one-sided. It was not something that could be explained in a single statement. Because readiness is not a fixed point. It is something that changes, something that grows, something that cannot be defined by one person alone. Later that night, she finally spoke. Not in a way that matched the intensity of the situation, not in a way that escalated anything further, but in a way that shifted the entire narrative. She said that growth takes time, that understanding yourself is not something that happens all at once. That being ready for something as significant as marriage is not about meeting expectations. It is about being honest with where you are. And that honesty matters more than anything else.
The tone changed.
Not completely, but enough. Because now the story was no longer about accusation. It was about perspective. Two different views. Two different understandings. Two people at different points in the same journey. Joseph did not respond again. Not publicly. Not in a way that added more to what had already been said. Because sometimes the first statement carries everything. And anything added after it only changes the focus. The final moment did not come with resolution. It did not come with agreement. It came with something more real. An understanding that not all stories move in the same direction at the same time. That not all connections reach the same conclusion. That sometimes the most honest thing you can say is the hardest thing to hear. And that is where everything settled. Not perfectly. Not completely. But truthfully. And now the only question that remains is this. When two people see the future differently, and one speaks the truth while the other is still finding it, is it better to stay and hope things align? Or to accept the difference before it creates something deeper? If this story made you feel every moment and you want to stay ahead of every twist, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who understands that the most powerful stories are not the ones that are easy. They're the ones that reveal the truth when it matters most. The moment those words left his mouth, it should have ended there, just another statement echoing into headlines, but if you stay with this until the very end, you're going to understand why what happened after that moment between Joseph Zeng and Bai Lu changed everything in a way no one could have predicted. The reaction outside was loud. Voices everywhere. Opinions forming faster than facts. But inside the spaces where it actually mattered, everything slowed down. Because truth does not move at the same speed as noise. Bai Lu did not rush to respond. Not because she had nothing to say, but because she understood something most people did not. Some words are not meant to be answered immediately. They are meant to be understood first. She sat alone later that night, not surrounded by messages, not focused on what people were saying, but on what had been said. And more importantly, why it had been said. Because statements like that do not come from nowhere. They come from something deeper. Something that has been building over time. Joseph Zeng was not in the same place. But he was not unaffected either. The calm he showed earlier was still there. But now it carried something heavier. Not regret. Not doubt. But awareness. Because once something is said out loud, it cannot be taken back. It becomes real in a way silence never could. He replayed the moment in his mind. Not changing the words. Not wishing he had said something different, but understanding the impact. Because impact is what remains long after the moment passes. Days moved forward, but the distance between them became clearer. Not created by the statement, but revealed by it. Because sometimes what feels like a sudden shift is actually something that has been there all along. Just waiting to be seen. The final conversation did not happen immediately. It did not come in the form of another public statement. It came quietly,
Directly.
without anyone else involved. Bai Lu reached out first, not to challenge, not to defend, but to understand. And that changed the tone of everything. Because understanding creates space where conflict usually grows. When Joseph answered, there was no tension in his voice. No urgency, just presence. Because he knew this was the moment that mattered more than anything that had already happened. She asked him something simple, not dramatic, not emotional, just honest. She asked what he really meant, not the version people heard, not the interpretation that spread, but the truth behind it. Joseph did not hesitate this time. He told her that readiness is not about being perfect. It is about knowing what you want and being able to stand in it without uncertainty. He said he felt she was still searching, still figuring things out. Still not fully settled in what she wanted her future to look like. And that was not wrong. But it meant something important. It meant they were not in the same place. Bai Lu listened. Not defensively. Not emotionally. But openly. Because she understood something in that moment. He was not trying to hurt her. He was trying to be honest. And honesty, even when it is difficult, carries a different kind of weight. She responded in a way that surprised even herself. She said, he was right. Not completely. Not in every detail, but in the part that mattered. She admitted she was still figuring things out, still growing, still not ready to step into something as final as marriage. And that changed everything, because now the truth existed on both sides. Not as a conflict, but as clarity. The silence that followed was different. Not heavy, not uncomfortable, but peaceful in a way that only comes when everything has been understood. Joseph spoke again, this time softer. He said that what they had was real. But reality does not always mean permanence. Sometimes it means something that exists fully in its time, and then changes. Bai Lu did not argue, because she felt it too, not as a loss, but as a realization. The final moment between them did not come with a decision announced out loud. It came with something quieter, an agreement without words. That moving forward separately was the right choice. Not because something failed, but because something had been understood. They ended the conversation simply. No dramatic goodbye. No final statements. Just a calm acceptance. And that was the real ending. Not when the words were spoken publicly. Not when the reactions spread. But when both of them understood what those words truly meant. The story does not end with conflict. It does not end with resolution in the way people expect. It ends with clarity. Two people recognizing where they stand and choosing to move forward in a way that reflects that truth. And now the only question that remains is this. When honesty reveals that two people are not ready for the same future at the same time, do you try to force alignment? Or do you respect the difference and walk separate paths? If this continuation made you feel something real and you want to see more stories like this, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who understands that sometimes the most powerful endings are not dramatic, they are honest and quiet, and stay with you long after everything else fades.